Hi, everybody, and welcome to our podcast, First Rate Law. My name is Bobby Rate, together with my partner, Tom James. We're your co hosts, and we are going to talk today about something that I must say my family and friends, on average, talk to me more about over the past couple of years than any other topic. I know that my wife, who is our office manager, every day says, "You should do a podcast on this topic because people don't know." And that is insurance reform in the auto negligence or no fault law area. I would say for years since 1973, when Michigan had a reform to the no fault law generally, there has been similar types of things in the law that we could count on. We knew, for sake of example, that you had coverage if you had insurance that would pay you benefits such as medical care for your medical bills, lost wages, household services, what's called attendant care or nursing care, those types of things. And one of the most important aspects was it was unlimited medical coverage. Unlimited meaning not that you just get it willy nilly forever. If you could show that you were getting treatment for an injury that was caused by the accident, that it was reasonable, that it was necessary, the insurance company was on the hook to pay it. I always use the example, if you have a back injury and you're still treating, maybe you hold off surgery for 10 years, but your surgeon says in writing, this surgery was necessitated or needed by the accident that occurred 10 years ago, your insurance company, off of that system, was responsible to pay for it. Well, unfortunately, 2019, 2020, they kind of weeded in a bunch of different types of sections. The the Michigan legislature wrote the worst bill you could ever see, and they passed it through our governor. And this particular legislation is awful and hits me right in the heart every time I think about it. And this is why. I spent a lot of time supporting our present governor, Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I also spent a lot of time through various organizations that I'm involved with, the Michigan Trial Lawyers Association, now known as the Michigan Association for Justice, and the negligence section of the State Bar. I was chairman of the latter. I was former president of MAJ. And it just so happens that when I was chairman, actually, I was vice chair at this time, of the negligence section, we had a state representative come and talk to us. And she pulled me aside after, along with our chairman, a guy by the name of Jim Bradley, and she asked if we would talk about the auto law because things were getting ramped up. There was a lot of pressure from the insurance industry and big business to change the insurance, this unlimited aspect, the fact that people were making claims they didn't like and they weren't making as much money. So they wanted to make changes. So they were pressing through their lobbyists up in Lansing, the senators, the representatives, and this particular representative, who is now our chief judge in Lansing on the Michigan Supreme Court, which is nice. She basically pulled us aside and said, her name's Kyra Bolden. She said, I'd love you to come talk. We are forming a committee in the House of Representatives to discuss this issue, and we're inviting people in the industry that know something about the insurance laws, how they're affecting our residents and how they're affecting the businesses and what's going on with that, to speak, to give us their opinions on things. I was so excited because I practiced my whole career mainly in personal injury, and a large part of that in auto, truck, motorcycle accident cases. In fact, the firm that Tom and I originally worked at is now called Michigan Auto Law. We did a lot of it over the years, and I was excited to talk to them, not just about all the good things of our present law, don't change it, because I did see many things that were problematic. And so I was excited to talk to them about changes I thought they could effectuate and changes I thought would be too much that would bring the industry down. So I went to Lansing. Me and the chairman, Jim Bradley, we talked for a long time with, I think there was 15, 16 people on what they called this House Select Committee on Auto Insurance Reform. And we talked all about it. Well, much to our chagrin, about 6 months later, they passed this law. And I was fortunate enough, even though it didn't matter, to also be able to talk to our governor in a conversation the day before she was due to sign this. And I was imploring her to come back to Lansing, to sit down with the powers that be, to talk about it, because this bill was awful. That bill was passed. And that bill is what we're here today to talk about, main features that affect you and affect your potential claims. And, to start it out, I'm going to have Tom talk about one aspect, which is basically liability coverage, underinsured coverage, ways to protect your family under this new legislation, because they think they did us a favor. And in some respects, they did in this one aspect, but they put a caveat. This is the worst written bill, Tom, I could imagine. In fact, I joke with people. I probably haven't read half the bill. I only read it when I have to read it to protect my clients or to help my clients because it's nauseating. But Tom, why don't you talk a little bit about that, and then I'll talk about the PIP choice stuff that we also see in this new bill.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, reading any bill, well, I guess it's more than a bill now, right? It's law. So it's a statute, and so the statutes. I mean, they read like tax code. You don't really, if you start reading this, you're like, oh my gosh, what does it mean? Um, but ultimately, right? It passed, and so now we have to adjust how we advise people. And so the first topic I want to hit on is how to protect yourself or what to look out for on your insurance policy or in your insurance policy to protect your family's finances in the unfortunate event you or a family member harms someone else. So that's right. That's a little bit different than all our other podcasts that we've done. All of our other podcasts have been, hey, you're the injured party. How can we best help you? Now I'm coming at it from the other person, what we call the other side of the V, the person who's being sued. So what do we look at? And I'm telling you, most people, right? And before I became an attorney and started understanding how insurance policies are written, or even what insurance policy documents look like, I mean, it was looking at reading this was like trying to read Greek or something for me. And you don't know what these words mean, but here's where it's going to help, right? So the first thing that you're going to look for is actually the very first line of what you call your deck page or your declaration page. Sometimes it's called a deck sheet. DEC is what it is, the abbreviation, and it just means declaratory or declarations. And so the first thing that you're going to see there in terms of like a line item and then a dollar amount of what you're getting charged, because it's kind of a la carte, right? You ever look at your insurance bill, it's a la carte. And the first thing it'll say bodily injury or liability. That is the line that tells you what you purchased in terms of protection in the event that you hurt somebody else. So how much will your insurance company pay out in the event that you hurt somebody? Before the reform, the lowest policy you could purchase was what we call a 2040. So $20,000, no one person would get paid more than $20,000 slash 40 in no one collision or no single collision will anyone ever cumulatively get paid out more than $40,000. So that was the old law. Now that got changed. That got changed. And so did our recommendations with that too. The reason why our recommendations changed because of the 2019/2020 reformation is that now you can get sued to pay for someone's medical expenses, right? So if you have a collision before 2019, it was a very, very rare circumstance that you could be sued for someone else's medical expenses, because all of those should have been covered by what we've discussed in other prior episodes, right? PIP, PIP, personal injury protection benefits, or what we call first party benefits. Bobby's actually going to talk a little bit more about some suggestions on what to do with your PIP right after I'm done talking on this. But now you could be sued for their medical expenses under certain circumstances. So that 2040 is no longer enough as a state minimum. And in fact, that's now been revised to, and the Department of Insurance and Financial Services, right? It's a department within the state of Michigan, has now said, and the statute says that the minimum someone can purchase without signing a waiver is 250,000 slash 500,000. Our recommendation is at minimum, never select anything lower than that 250,000 slash 500,000, because again, now you can get sued for someone's medical expenses. And you don't want to put yourself in a position where you have to start tapping into your 401k, or any other retirement accounts that you have to go through. Protect yourself with the insurance with your own insurance company. In addition to that, I'm going to tack this on, and I wasn't going to say this earlier, but once you have 250,000 slash $500,000 worth of liability protection, right? And again, this protects you from your personal assets. You should consider buying an umbrella policy. And so umbrella policies are those additional insurances that you can buy that go on top of other insurance that you have. So you might have auto insurance that protects you 250, 500 again. And then you have a homeowner's policy, which will protect you probably, depending upon the value of your home, certain things like, you can have $500,000 worth of coverage. That protects you if somebody slips and falls on your property, right? Or if you're on a jet ski and you accidentally hit somebody on a jet ski, your dog bites somebody, like all of these things would come under your homeowner's policy. But when you buy an umbrella, that covers everything. So you can buy, let's say, a $2 million umbrella. They're really not that expensive. It's not as expensive as you might think based on your auto policy premiums. But that'll protect anything, right? That'll protect the excess auto coverage. That'll protect the excess dog bite or slip and fall, whatever occurs. But do yourself a favor, right? Absolutely protect yourself. If there's ever any questions, obviously, pick up the phone and give us a call, right? And call us at that toll-free number. Make it easy on yourself. Toll-free number 866 rate law, RAITTLAW, and we'll answer all your questions as it relates to that.
Yeah, the other part of the law that to me is much more problematic, because in truth they made an improvement to that area, but again they did a caveat. Before, when we would bring a claim or file a lawsuit against others, many times there was just that minimum $20,000 to be able to get them as far as their damages. Well, now we're kind of happy. It could be 250, but it's very frustrating when we see no, someone signed a form, they only have 50, or someone signed a form, there's only 100. And the truth is, from looking at from the other angle, trying to protect yourself and your family, why would you only want to do that? To save a very little bit amount of money, it's much more important that you stick with the 250, like Tom said. But what we see on a regular basis, I will say a weekly basis, is the area that I'm going to talk about. And that is, for the first time with this new law, they no longer sell only unlimited personal injury protection coverage. And what that is coverage that covers your medical bills, that covers your wage loss, that covers your replacement service. That's all your no fault benefits. But they zoned in on one area, and it's this unlimited area when you had unlimited medical, because the insurance industry didn't like the fact that they might have to pay a year, 2, 4, 6, 10 years from now. They wanted to limit it if at all possible. So they had a huge campaign to try to do this, and they were ended up being successful because of this legislation. However, what it does is catastrophic in so many ways, because what it does is it limits the ability for you to get the kind of care you may need, mainly if you're seriously injured, catastrophically injured, and if you need certain services. Let me give you one example. Michigan, because of this unlimited no fault law, had amongst the best traumatic brain injury facilities in the country. People would fly in from all over the country if they suffered a traumatic brain injury. And the way these cases came to them and were paid for in many respects was this unlimited PIP coverage, because if it related to the accident, they were getting paid. They don't get paid if those same insurance companies now sell coverage that doesn't pay for more than, say, $250,000 in medical, because once you reach that 250, they no longer pay. Same thing with spinal cord injury facilities. These acute care facilities that specialize in helping people that are paralyzed or suffering debilitating spinal cord injuries. They were well staffed, great reputations, getting paid through auto insurance because the coverage was there. So what happened is they now create PIP choice. And the choice aspect could seem obvious, but basically what it is yes, you can still get unlimited coverage. That's going to be the most quote unquote expensive coverage. But for some less money, and that's where the debate comes in when you talk about less money. Is it a lot less, a little less? Truth of the matter is, it's nothing compared to the coverage you get with sticking with unlimited. But for less money, you can get less coverage. 500,000, 250, in certain circumstances 50. And obviously the general public who doesn't know any better, to no fault of their own, they say, hey, I can save money, they get this coverage. That person that gets this coverage is driving along, a car comes out of nowhere, hits them, they suffer a terrible spinal cord injury. They have to go inpatient to one of these facilities I talked about earlier. And they thought because they were going to save $120 a year and they now have 250 in coverage, that they would take that coverage. And if anything happens, they would be okay. Truth of the matter is, 250 is nothing when you suffer that kind of injury. And also, if you have health insurance and you think, well, my health insurance will just cover it, that's not always the case. That's not always the case. And when you're in an auto accident, your auto insurance is the one that should be fully covered, so to speak, fully paid for, because that's the coverage that's going to be there when you need it from an auto accident. And there's additional benefits you get. It's funny because most people think that it's just the medical that is limited when you take limited coverage, but there's also a very serious, important benefit when you're seriously injured, and that's what's called attendant care or nursing care. That care is also under that portion, and it's really called allowable expense coverage. It's not just medical, it's this attendant care I'm talking about. If you don't take out an unlimited policy, you don't have that coverage. And if you don't have that coverage, you can't get nursing care. And health insurance doesn't pay for attendant care unless you take out a separate caveat of that type of care. So you have that benefit. There's all these kinds of benefits you get with your auto insurance. And to save a little bit of money, a lot of people are giving into that and getting lesser coverage. So what happens to the spinal cord companies, the traumatic brain injury facilities, when now they're not able to take on these cases? Now they're not able to pay their employees. They're going out of business, and they're continually going out of business. And people that their whole job was to provide attendant care, they were nurses and they specialized in these injuries from auto accidents, and they would help provide attendant care at facilities or in the home. They're going out of business because they're not getting paid, because no longer does everybody have those attendant care services and the benefits under their policy if they didn't stick with unlimited. At the end of the day, we could talk about 70 different scenarios. We could talk about all types of coverage. The bottom line, and it's very easy. If you want to best protect you and your family, if you're ever in a serious injury accident and you ever suffer serious injuries, take out unlimited coverage, stick with that coverage you had for years before this new law went into place. You'll thank your lucky stars, as many of our clients do, when they keep it, but you'll also be kicking yourself, as unfortunately many, Tom, of our clients do now, when you didn't take it. Because I mean, I just had a client come back to us. She was in a second accident, right? She was in a second accident. She suffered a traumatic brain injury in the first one. She didn't keep her unlimited coverage. She actually opted out, which is the worst thing you can do. And she was going to rely on her health insurance. And she was not able to get the kind of care in the first case. And unfortunately, Tom, she didn't have the money, she said, to get the unlimited coverage back in place. And she got in a second accident. And guess what? Seriously injured, and she's not going to be able to get the care. And the last piece of this, and this is kind of, not all personal injury attorneys do this. And in the beginning of my career, I didn't do it very much at all, but I learned it's an unbelievable benefit in this area. It helps our clients, it helps our case, it helps us as lawyers. And that is, part of those allowable expenses is case management, nurse case management services. If you're in an accident, one of the benefits you get if you have allowable expense coverage and you didn't opt out totally is nurse case management services. Nurse case managers are really well equipped to help you with your medical care, to answer your medical questions, to make sure you're getting the right testing, to make sure you're getting to the right specialists. And what they do for us is they communicate with our office on a regular basis, regular monthly reports, so we know what our clients are doing medically. We know that our clients are getting the care they need. And guess what? You opt out, You don't get that. That's not covered. You get $250,000 in coverage. You think that's a lot of money? You're seriously injured? Case managers don't want to use up that money because you need it for other things. So you're not going to be able to get that. We have some case managers that are real good that shifted their kind of policy on how they attack these cases depending on the kind of coverage. And if you only took out 250, maybe they just do a phone consultation. Maybe they don't meet you at every appointment because they charge for that. They help you, but they can't help you the way they could help you if you just take out unlimited coverage like you always had to before, and is really not much more expensive than it ever was. But the truth is, you think about it at the time, you don't think about it when you're really injured, and you're going to pay for that, literally.
Yeah, the PIP choice, it makes me so crazy, right? It makes me so crazy because the insurance agent, right? This is the person that we go to and we ask them, "Hey, how can I lower my bill? How can I do all these other things?" They might be your friend, they might be a family member, but they don't understand, right? A sales agent does not understand the impact of limiting your medical pay coverage to any amount, right? I mean, it should be unlimited, but they're not equipped to explain why that's important. And so just recently we had another client who chose zero as her med pay, kind of like the example that you gave. And I asked her, I'm like, well, why did you pick zero med pay? Right. I mean, and she's like, well, it was the cheapest. And I'm like, okay, I get that. But why would you just say no to medical pay? And she's like, well, I have Medicare, and my agent told me if I wanted to save money, Medicare will pay for all my medical expenses. I'll be just fine with my Medicare.
That agent should
And I
be
can tell you
sued.
she's not. That agent should be sued, but it's unfortunately there you can't for that, but they should be. There should be a law that doesn't allow them to say that, because there's other circumstances here. Let me give you these two scenarios. So the one is Medicare, I'm saving money, they told me Medicare would take care of it. The other situation I hear is that, oh, I have great health insurance through my employer. Right, we only hear that a few times now. You don't hear that a lot anymore, but I have great health insurance through my employer, and that insurance will cover anything that I ever need, blah blah blah. And so I don't need med pay coverage with my auto insurance. Well, that's absolutely wrong. Let me go at it from the health insurance before I hit Medicare. For If you have a very serious injury, you are not able to work during your period of recovery. And I'm going to tell you, I don't care what job you have. If you're disabled from going back to work for 6 months, if you're disabled for going back to work for a year, or God forbid, 2 years, right, or longer, do you really think your employer is going to hold that job for you? They're not. And what happens when your employer lets you go? I don't, and don't even say FMLA, right? Oh, FMLA will protect me. No, that's even limited, right? That only gives you a limited time of protection. But so FMLA passes. Now the employer's like, I got to fill the position. You get let go. A new person gets hired. What happens to health insurance? Well, you have the option to keep Cobra going, right? Cobra's $900 a month, right? If we thought that the auto insurance was too expensive, how are we going to pay for Cobra? That's $900 a month. So please do not allow any insurance agent to sell you on the idea that your health insurance through your employer is going to protect you in the event that you're seriously injured. Now let's go to the Medicare argument. On the Medicare argument, is Medicare going to protect you and provide you with all of those services that you need? Absolutely not. Now, the good thing about Medicare is it won't go away because you're disabled. That'll stay there. And you'll get the bare minimum Medicare services, but you're not going to get the premium services, right? Just like Bobby was just mentioning, you're not going to have a case manager that's going to help you navigate the system to find that specialist that your primary care told you to go see. You're going to have to figure it out on your own, or unless you're working with us, you give us a call. We can give you some recommendations. But you see what I'm saying here, right? You're going to be kind of left out in the wind. The other thing about Medicare, there's limited number of physical therapy appointments that they'll pay for. And before they'll ever pay for physical therapy, you have to jump through 50 other hoops to get to that point. We've all seen those, right? All the red tape you have to deal with when dealing with Medicare, that doesn't exist if you selected unlimited coverage for your allowable expenses / medical pay for your auto insurance. So please, please follow what Bobby said, follow what I'm saying. The next time you re-up, or don't even wait to re-up, call your insurance agent and say, hey, what is my med pay coverage? What is my allowable expense coverage? If they say anything other than unlimited, ask them, right? Hey, I want to get this changed. Tell me how much it is. No matter how much it is, I'm going to tell you it's going to save you in the end, because unfortunately, Michigan is just one of those states where we have lots of auto collisions. Lots of auto collisions. A lot of it's caused by weather. A lot of it is caused by people too busy texting on their cell phones. Because I don't know about you, but even driving into work today, I look over to my left and that dummy's like playing on their cell phone, both hands, right? Probably driving with their knee, playing on their cell phone. I look over here, this person's looking, I can see they're looking at directions on where to go. One of these two guys is probably going to crash into me, and I need to protect myself. And so we're going to definitely provide you guidance on how to protect yourself as well. And that's the purpose of this podcast, of all these podcasts that we've been putting on. It's not only to educate you about us, but it's also to help you understand how you can help yourself. So continue on with our series. I know this is number 11. We have number 12 coming up, and we're going to explain more about like the things that we do, the things that set us apart. Hopefully you've already gathered that through the 11 episodes you've been watching so far. But certainly, we're excited. We're excited to do this. We're excited to put on this series of podcasts to help you understand everything, understand your rights, and why, right? Why rate law is the best place to be. And in fact, ever any questions, go to our website. Our website is www.firstratelaw.com, and that's FIRST law.com, or call us on our toll-free number. We have a toll-free number, of course, 866-RATE-LAW, RAITTLAW, and give us a ring. Ask for Bobby, ask for Tom, and we'll answer every single question you have, because we want to help you through this process too. Thank you so much. And again, catch us on the next episode, which is going to be our last in this series, of why choosing rate law is the best choice. Thanks.